Welcome back to part 4, Jaguar XF 2013 repair. With any luck, this is going to be the last part. In fact, I'm going to just make this the last part. Whether this is a 20-minute video or an hour-long video, this is going to be the last part, and we're going to see this thing running here hopefully by the end of this this video. I left you off last time with basically a long block plus here. It's pretty much all wired up from the heads down, so it's time to build up the top and the front of the engine. So we're going to get the supercharger on next, which is kind of the intake as well. But before we do that, you need to see here, this is the supercharger, and if I can zoom out just a little bit so you can see both pieces at a time here. Here's the snout, here's the pulley, and here's the impeller. So if you watch, I can move this without the impeller moving. This should be tight. There is slop in this, so we need to take the nose of this thing off, and I'll show you what the fix is for that. Okay, there are 7 bolts to get this off. 1, 2, 3 inside of the throttle body intake runner there. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Then you just got to pry this thing off, and it was on there quite good. So I went ahead and took this side off. You didn't have to do it on my model. It doesn't have the casting come out here. But in order to get onto this tab and pry a little bit, that's what I decided to do. So it's pretty loose right now. You can see the gap there. So I'm going to get this thing off the rest of the way, and we'll take a look. Alright, here's a close-up view of it. The snout is off. You don't have to take the bypass actuator off, but I did because it's plastic. I didn't want to break it, so I just moved it out of the way. Here is the failure piece. This spring in here should be tabbed and held over here, and it's just completely loose in here. So we're going to pry this guy off. Just pull him right off. And then, I don't know what those letters are for. I wonder if it's been replaced before. Anyway, we're ditching this design. This is Jaguar's design here. I think they put this spring on here to dampen some load when it spools up. But there's a place called ZZ Performance. They're out of Wyoming, Michigan, and they claim to be the original maker of these. But this is a solid coupler here. It's pretty soft plastic. I guess the term would be ductile. It's just not a brittle plastic. It's very soft to the touch. So anyway, this is going to go on here, and then we're going to put the snout back on into these here, and it should be nice and solid. We're going to have to clean up this surface on both sides, put a little bit more gasket maker on here, Permatex Ultra Black, that's what I like to use, and pull this thing back on. Alright, she's all back together, and this is nice, you know, no play. You can see as I move this, solid. Alright, let's get some intake gaskets on and set this thing. And the intake supercharger is on. It's just bolted down with its internal 10mm bolts, 3 on each side for the V6 version of this engine. And I did just loosely set the throttle body here. It's kind of difficult as you set this thing. There's a hose here that runs underneath the intake supercharger. You got to make sure that you get it clipped in a couple spots on the bottom. So just be careful with that. Now I'm going to put the top of this thing on. These bolts are torqued down. I'm going to put the top cover on now. Okay, the top cover is set. There's like 22 bolts It's a mix of 10mm and T40s. So the 10mm guys are right here in the center, and the rest of them are T40s. Two of these T40s are really long. I have the socket sitting on one of them here. You see this goes all the way down to the intake, and same thing here on this side. This one goes all the way down to the front bolts here on the intake, bolts to the head. I'm going to cinch all these down here, torque them all down. Just like everything else, start all these bolts by hand, just a few threads so everything's located, and then torque from the center, and then work your way out. And that's all torqued down. I also torqued down the throttle body. Hey, don't forget in the back, a couple of these bolts back here on the intake hold the wiring bracket. So bolted that on and plugged in, I think, what is the map sensor down here. It's difficult to see right there. Don't forget that. Okay, I think next, this is going to be a little bit tough. I kind of forget what order I took this stuff off on. But I think next I'm going to do the fuel lines and vacuum lines, and then start wiring this thing up. You notice I left the oil filter housing till last, and that's on purpose because I want to make sure this coolant pipe, which I'll put on as well here, seats down in there nice and good, and the oil filter housing kind of hides that. So let's do the fuel lines, the vacuum lines, wire some stuff up, and maybe I'll get this oil filter housing on as well with the coolant pipe. Okay, several things to discuss here. Coolant pipe is on, oil filter housing is on, fuel line is on here that goes across, that bridges the two sides, and it's wired up here up top. Got the bypass actuator wired in. I got the throttle body wired in. So anyway, I think what is important here is vacuum line routing. You're probably going to want to see this. Took me a little bit to remember where everything went, so I'm going to go one by one. You've got this thick line here. This will go into the air box on this side, and it goes into the back of the valve cover here and runs right there. Okay, that's probably your fresh air intake for the positive crankcase ventilation system. Then you've got a purge valve for the evap system. That guy sits right here and plugs in right here and right up here. Okay, so that's it for pretty much this side. Now you have your, let me move this out of the way. We talk about the brake booster, that vacuum line, and a control valve of some sort. This is where it'll sit in the cowling once I get this back up. Runs across here, and then connects into this guy, and this guy's got two connectors on him. This hose here has splits right here and goes to this connector and the connector for the brake booster. All right, and then that line continues on, connects to here, and that line continues on down to the vacuum pump. All right, and then the last one to talk about is this thick one here. Goes under the throttle body, comes back around here, and snaps into the back of the valve cover. All right, so, one last one. I didn't talk about where this goes. This guy goes to the back of your supercharger. You follow it down there, and it connects back there. Okay, several vacuum lines, and that's their routing for the AJ126 engine. I think next I'm gonna go ahead and put these belts on, and the belts are on. Of course, you got to put on the water pump, power steering, AC, alternator belt first. You kind of take a little bit of a look at the routing. Belt goes underneath this tensioner around here, and behind this bracket here, this bracket has a pulley on the back side you cannot see, which angles the belt down around the alternator, then around this idler pulley. across the water pump, power steering, AC, and then back to the crank. So it's a little bit of a difficult belt system to put on. And then the supercharger belt is pretty simple. You got 2 idler pulleys, 1 tensioner pulley that goes around the crank, around this idler pulley, around the supercharger, around another idler pulley, and then around the tensioner. It's kind of a momentous occasion. I don't have any new parts left in the trunk of the car to put on here, besides oil. Speaking of oil, I think now's the time. I'm going to connect the battery, put 7 point something quarts in here. I don't remember what that is. I'll have to look that up. And then I'm going to fire this thing up as it sits here. I'm going to put the air intake on, at least just a little bit loosely, so I can get the mass airflow sensors on each side plugged in. Yeah, we're gonna fire this up now just in case there's any kind of problem or leaks here or there. I'm gonna fire this up. Let's get some oil in it. Okay, as you can see, I got the dual air filters in. It's got dual mass airflow sensors. Wanted to plug those in before firing this up. Got 7 quarts of my favorite 5W20 oil. They make all weights, but my favorite brand anyway. I'm not going to mention their name unless they start paying me. I'll give you a hint though. It's not Castrol. If you want to take a guess, you're a mechanic or whatnot, you can make a comment. Make a comment down below if you want. Anyway, the 7 quarts is in. There we go. We're doing this live, guys. We're doing it live. Got fully charged battery in this thing. Let's see what this does. Oh, before I crank it up, just a reminder, if you've never fired up a brand new rebuilt engine, it's probably going to take a little while to crank because all the fuel pressure is out of the lines. And when it first fires up, it might be a little rattly. Even though I put assembly lube on everything, it takes a little while for all that oil pressure. I mean, the engine's been off a long time. Every drop of oil has dropped down to the oil pan and was drained out. So, yeah, it might be a little bit rattly. Might take a little bit long to crank. Alright, that's it. You saw it live. The little bit of vapor you see coming out is just a little bit of it's coming out of the coolant pipes. You heard it took a really long time to crank. You heard that it was really rattly at first, but there we go. We got this guy running. So I'm going to shut it off right now. Let all this vapor clear out of here. And then I'm going to fire back up and really look at the fuel injectors on each side. And yeah, I think we might be good, but I'm going to want to run it for about, I don't know, a couple minutes or so and really check things out, make sure it's all good. I'll get back with you. Alright, I cleared all the codes, got a couple that came back. Of course, there's a lot of stuff that's still disconnected. There's no cooling fans, there's no headlights and all that stuff. So I'm not even going to worry about that until it's all back together. And of course, check tire pressure. The front tires are off. Yes, I have my door open. Yes, the trunk and hood are open. Anyway, and yes, the coolant level is low. There's no coolant in it. Oh yeah, and the fuel level is low, which is actually a good thing. I don't know how old the gas is in this thing. I'm gonna have to fill this thing up right away once I get it on the road. But let's fire it up one more time here and take a good look at everything. Sounds pretty good to me. I am not seeing any fuel leaks. It's something you always kind of worry about once you put a direct injection engine back together. Really high, over 2,000 PSI is in this silver line right here connected down here. So I like it. I think it sounds good. I'm going to shut it off and start putting all the rest of this junk back on. We got to get this fuse box back down and put it in its home. We got to put the left-hand cowling back on. We got to put the center cowling back on. We got to get the windshield wipers on. We got to take all this air filtration stuff back off and get all the coolant lines on. Get the radiator fans in. Then actually fill it with coolant. We got to get the headlights in and get the front bumper back on, front fascia. Alright, a lot of work here. These beauty covers on the sides, these foam silencers are back on. Got to get those on before you put this fuse box in. Holy cow, this is ridiculous. So this thing's got like 3 pieces of cowling. This piece that basically houses the fuse box. A centerpiece right here, and then another piece over here. So you put the 2 side pieces in first, and then you put in the centerpiece. The 2 side pieces have 3 bolts. Black one right there, one right down there, and then one very difficult to see back there. This piece only has, well, it has 3 bolts as well. It's got a black one right there. Crazy hard to get to one right there. And then one tucked up underneath here. I'm pointing at it right there, right by the wiring harness. So once you get that in, you lay the wiring harness in it, and then set the fuse box. Fuse box has a bolt underneath here, a bolt here, and a bolt there. And I put in the engine brace. It's right here. 2 bolts here, and 2 bolts on the other side. Once that brace goes in, then you can clip the vacuum line to it, to the brake booster. Next thing is the cowling. I will put in the cowling that goes up here, and then the windshield wipers. And there's the windshield wipers on with the upper cowling up there against the windshield. I put the cover over the fuse box. So these are just push pin little guys. That center pin, to get it out, you push it down, and then you pry the whole piece up. To get it in, take that center pin all the way out and push the base in, and then push the center pin so it's flush. Alright? 2 pieces. Weather stripping is in as well. It's in 2 pieces. Splits right here in the middle. That is in, and the windshield wipers are on. I think the next stuff I'm going to do is up front here. I'm going to put in the fan, the shroud, and all the cooling hoses. All right, let's talk coolant lines for a quick second here. The first one that you should put on as this goes back together is the thermostat with this guy here. So it connects right here, comes down here into the thermostat and into the lower radiator hose. You got a small hose for your, looks like heater core here, and then another hose right here that connects into the water pump. All right, and then this small fragile guy, you probably got a 50-50 chance of breaking this when you pulled it out. It's difficult. It's kind of a, I don't know what you call it, but it's one of those ones where it, kind of one way you push it in there, you got to push this ring down to pull that out. Can't remember the term for that. Then after that, I did the supercharger cooling lines. It's these guys here, 2 on each side. They kind of come together as a hard line. You see this is stamped AWD for all-wheel drive. Down here you got 2 lines that'll clip into that. Then I put in the coolant reservoir. It's got a line on bottom, and don't forget the level sensor plug that goes in there. And then the overflow bleed off lines, whatever you want to call them. Again, fragile little guys that go into here and right down here by the throttle body. And they have these keepers on them. They're kind of let me get in the camera here. They're kind of a half moon shape, and if you've noticed, they have an arch here in the back. So make sure that that goes on correctly. You'll look at the ring and see how it goes. You just kind of snap it on there. It keeps them in there. All right, I'm saving the upper radiator hose for last. Next, we're going to take the cooling fan and shroud and slide it in. And the cooling fan is in. A little bit of a difficult one to get in, just about like everything else with this engine. I went ahead and put the upper radiator hose on as well. So here I'll bring you in and show you. It slides down into a tab over here. This would be the driver's side. You can see how it fits into this tab right here. Okay. And on the other side, there's a tab that it fits in, and there's a bolt. Hard to see, but it's right on the other side of this. There's a bolt that'll bolt into it. And then just find the witness marks on your fan shroud where the cooling lines were from the get-go. So found one right here, underneath there, plugs in there. All right, and on the bottom, let me get down there for you. This is looking on the driver's side. There's a little hook built into the shroud that goes around here. And same thing on the passenger side. You see the hook right there onto that plastic. All right, and then you just snake the plug for it around through that frame piece. Then it plugs in right here. Okay, now I'm gonna put the headlights in. Getting the headlights in is actually one of the simplest jobs of this whole process. Probably don't even have to take those headlights or the front bumper off if you don't want to, but I did just for space. Anyway, I don't think I showed them coming off, so I'll just show them going on. This is the driver's side. You just have 3 bolts. One right there. One right here. And then underneath the fender wall, splash guard, whatever you want to call it, right here. And it's just as simple as plugging it in right there. And the upper radiator support is on. It's just 6 bolts, 3 on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Make sure that the radiator fits into these rubber grommets up here. That's on. I've got to put the bottom splash guard on, sitting over there. You're not going to see that. It's simple, hard to film. The next thing you're going to see is the front fascia back on. There's the front fascia on. I will go over how to get this on. There's an 8mm bolt here, an 8mm bolt there, a push pin there, an 8mm bolt right down there, And same on the other side. 8mm bolt right there. And then on the sides, you have a bolt right here on the side, and then up underneath it right here. These two right next to each other. Same thing on both sides. Okay, then underneath you have a bolt up here and a bolt right there. That's basically it that holds the fascia on. Don't forget, on the passenger side over here you have a windshield wiper and one electrical connector. Headlight wiper hose over on that side. And on this side you have an electrical connector right here and another electrical connector here. That's basically it for the fascia. Now let's get this wheel arch trim back in on both sides. Alright, the wheel arch trim is in. Time for wheels. Wheels are on. Now let's finish up the top of the engine. All we got left is the air intake to put on up here. There she sits, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out of parts to put back on this car. So now I'm just going to take the cap off this coolant here, top it off, run it for a minute or 2 or 10 until it warms up and sucks all the coolant out of there and bleeds itself. I'm going to take it for a spin. Alright, this guy is garage complete, but any car you do that much work to, you want to put some miles on to make sure there's no little leaks, anything like that. So post-maintenance testing, if you will. I'm going to put 1,000 miles on this. It's going to go into my rotation as my daily driver. Up next is a 2016 Land Rover Discovery Sport, so stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.